What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So this week, of course, Wednesday is Christmas, and we'll actually not have a Newswave on Wednesday. We'll have one tomorrow and then also on Thursday and Friday, but Wednesday we're going to take day off and spend the time with the family and enjoy the holidays. But we'll be back, like I said, on Thursday. We do have a bunch of stuff actually to go over today. PT, we're of course used to that hallway, but what if we could get outside of that hallway and kind of explore the little bits of the city that we saw towards the end with the cinematic, and we found out it was Norman Reedus with Silent Hills. Well, apparently someone has done that, and we're going to take a look at that today. And then also, one of my favorite responses from Tencent has been about Joy-Con drift. It sounds weird, but they tried to explain what could be causing it, and it was pretty good. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to like button. It does help out quite a bit. You guys have been doing that a lot, liking the videos, and it has been helping out the videos a ton, so I do appreciate that. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe down below so you can keep up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. We're going to actually start today with the Master Chief Collection on PC. Now, of course, Reach has found its way to the PC, and it's been doing pretty well there. People have been really excited about it, myself included. But we're also asking about the other ones, the other Halo games, like Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, any of the Halos right now that are on the Xbox, people want them on PC, and we know we're going in chronological order starting with 1. Well, they did put out an update, this 343, talking about the Halo Master Chief Collection on PC, and they say that all the other Halo games that are currently scheduled, I guess that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, ODST, are coming next year, 2020, and they even give a ton of updates as to what they still have to do to get them up and running, and some cool screenshots as well, and kind of the progress. They're very good about this, by the way. That's one thing I'll give them a lot of credit for, is that they're very good about keeping us up to date on the Master Chief Collection just in general, patch notes and improvements they're working on, and now they're throwing the PC versions in there, and I gotta say, I'm excited for next year. We're gonna get Halo 3, which is my favorite one, at least it seems like anyway right now. Master Chief Collection has, of course, had delays, so that's not out of the question, but Halo 1 is next, and it looks like they've have a lot of progress on it, and Halo 1 is still going to be really fun online, so good to hear. Next year is going to be a ton of Halo on PC. Also, do you remember that the Playdate? It was the little handheld that we had talked about previously that had like the crank on the side of it, and the screen was interesting because it was kind of like a black and white screen that wasn't backlit, but it's pretty easy to see it. Well, it is still on track. It was supposed to be coming out 2020, so next year, and according to them, it's still on track. They've been passing a ton of certifications and tests and all kinds of stuff to actually be able to release it. Well, they're also doing dev kits now, and it looks like they're starting to sell those next year, where for a lot of us, it's not going to do much. They even say it's not going to do a ton for you if you're not looking to develop a game, but if you are, you can actually pick one of these up and you can check it out. They're going to have more information going about that later on their site, so make sure you keep up to date there. But this is the product that it's a handheld that I really didn't know why it existed necessarily, but I mean, it's cool enough to be like, I guess, why not? And it's not like the Atari VCS where that was asking for like a ton of money up front to be able to even produce the ththings. They're gonna make this and then sell it when it's ready to go. So I'm still interested in it. It's good to know though that we got an update, because I thought about that the other day. I said, man, because it'll pop up on Twitter. I hadn't heard anything about it recently. Well, good news, still 2020, and I'll just be curious to see how all this actually works out, especially now they're looking to have developers jump in and create their own games with dev kits. Oh, and do you guys remember a while ago we had talked about that Rockman collection that Capcom was putting out? It's only in Japan, and it popped up at one point on their press media site, and I thought it was the coolest looking thing. I think it was only in Japan. That's the only frustrating part, of course, but I thought there were talks of it showing up in the West as well. But check this out. This was actually posted on Twitter. A person did manage to get it imported. This is from JP's Switch Mania, where they did unbox it and check it out. And this looks awesome, by the way. Over there, I believe it's just around $100 US, so it's not even that bad considering all the stuff that it comes with. And you know me, I'm a big Mega Man fan, so when I saw this in general from Capcom, I was really, really excited. I would like to see this come west and actually have that for sale, as right now it appears to be pretty much just on sale Amazon Japan, but it's still listed, I guess, so you can go pick it up if you want, and the Switch is region free, and really there's not a lot of reading you have to do in Mega Man anyway, so I mean, I guess technically you can still pick it up and have fun. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with Tencent and Nintendo and the Switch. Now, of course, the Switch in China, launching through Tencent, Nintendo, and they moved New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe over there, and that was like their big launch title, but the Switch is region free, so you can bring games in if you want to play them. However, one thing that seems to have followed the Switch, and it's not too surprising just based on the way the Switch's the Joy-Con controllers are built with their analog sticks, is Joy-Con drift. Now, what's really funny about this situation is, of course, Tencent's going to provide customer service, and they'll have to try to talk people through different things. And I'm sure they have like a checklist that they go through. Is it this? Okay. Is it this? All right. No. Okay. That's the problem. Well, online, someone actually posted that they had Joy-Con drift. So, of course, they call up customer support, and what do they tell them? Well, let's go actually to this tweet here from Chinese Nintendo that did translate it, as you're seeing here, saying, "Is my Joy-Con not drifting? I talked to customer service, and they told me the behavior of Joy-Cons are not guaranteed on import games, and that I should test with new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe." Utter nonsense. And yeah, we know it's a hardware problem, right? And I have to imagine that the customer service person was just like, look, if they're not playing on a game that we have sold here officially in China, that's the problem. Tell them that's the problem, that it's got to be it's not compatible. Well, no, it's just the Joy-Con itself has issues with the joysticks, and we've been over this like 8 million times at this point. There's been a full lawsuit over this to the point where I think it's publicized enough that they even knew right away, well, no, that's not the issue. It has to do with the Joy-Con itself. We need to get it replaced so I can play more Zelda, not just because I've imported Zelda. That's not the actual issue there. It's the Joy-Con itself. They have to pretty much certify games to be sold in China, so there's a whole process that you have to get it actually approved to be sold there, and a lot of people will just be importing games. I can tell you that now, as some people are already doing. A lot of people even imported the Switch ahead of time into China. So to hear about these calls being made and them asking them if it's an imported game, that's the problem. Not necessarily. That doesn't seem like that would be the issue. It's definitely a mechanical problem with that Joy-Con itself, and you'd think they would replace it. But hey, I'm also curious if maybe they're writing it off as it being an imported game, and maybe they don't have to replace it just because it's like part of their company policy or corporate policy. Oh, we're not going to change it out because you're playing it on a game that we don't approve of. I wonder if that's how they would get around that. It's hard to say. At least at this point, I guess you have to buy another Joy-Con. I guess that's ultimately better than buying a whole nother system, but it is still odd that they possibly are getting around replacements that way. Or maybe that's just how they're explaining it to everyone at this point who calls them for customer service on a drifting Joy-Con, if they're not just playing New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Next up, let's talk about PT, because this is really, really cool what's happened here. Now, on YouTube, a person by the name of Lance McDonald on YouTube actually took the files from PT and connected them so that you could just walk out into the map that you see towards the end. You see Norman Reedus, and you see a cinematic play, and it's like Silent Hills. That was a big reveal at the end of the demo. But of course, the demo was put out to build up hype for PT that turned into Silent Hill. It was a really cool demo, right? And people still play it to this day, despite it coming out in 2014. People are still playing it, and it's just a demo. It does make me wonder what the game itself could have been at some point when Kojima finished it alongside of Konami, who, big spat, of course, everything gets shut down. And then we see Kojima go on to make Death Stranding by himself independently alongside Sony, but with his own direction, his own vision, without Konami kind of over him telling him what to do. But the person on YouTube took off through the door, and they go out into the world of Silent Hills. And you know what? It was actually a bit more built than I thought it would be. A lot of times when people go off into these parts of the map that aren't even designed to actually be traversed, they're pretty bad. Like, there's not a lot there. There's not a lot of detail. There's no real reason to even be there other than to just say, this is, I did it. I'm here. A lot of times it's like blocky wireframe, like with like a basic texture over it, whether it's like all white or all blue or something like that. This is kind of built out. He's walking around. He follows the blood trail that you see in the cinematic, and then kind of just takes off looking around at everything. And there was a world there. Like, there was a game that was being built, as we would assume with the demo being put out, but it was still kind of attached to that demo, and it really does come back to making us wonder what could have been with PT. I would make sure you check the video out so you can get a look, especially if you played PT back then, or maybe you're curious about what Kojima could develop down the road with this apparent horror game that he's mentioned before and even alluded to. But it looked like he was building a world, and it looked like it was going to be pretty creepy. Silent Hills, that makes sense. It is also interesting to see, again, just how compelling a single demo is to a lot of people still. I mean, they're 5 years later, and people are still playing through it, still digging through it. People have done all kinds of stuff, like pulled the camera back to see that you had someone following you the whole time while you were walking around. It is impressive stuff with this demo and how much care went into it. And it really does frustrate me that we never got the full game, but maybe there's more stuff still hiding in this demo. However, now we can walk out into the world and see all kinds of cool stuff. I would go check out that video, just see a bit more about it. Next up, let's talk about a canceled game from Ubisoft. Now, this game has not been announced, or it was never announced, but it apparently was in development for a couple of years, and we'll take some guesses as to what it was, I guess, later on. But let's talk about where this came from exactly. This is on Twitter, as you're seeing here, from Luis, who is a programmer at Ubisoft Montreal, saying, "I just learned that the project I've been working on for the past 3 years has been canceled. This is tough news because I've been working with all these people for around 7 years, during which we have shipped both Watch Dogs and Watch Dogs 2. However, the good thing about working at Ubisoft Montreal is that nobody in the team has lost their job. Every single one of the 200 plus people in the team will be reassigned to an existing project in the studio. There's over 15 of them. We even get to choose which ones we prefer." So first of all, hey, good job to Ubisoft. They didn't fire everyone. That's good to hear. We've seen, of course, EA like completely shut down, like Visceral, and then just like, all right, you guys are out. See ya. Like that's something we've seen bigger companies do. So I'm glad to see that Ubisoft is reassigning people and even allowing them to kind of choose what they're most interested in around them. But I do really wonder, what was this game that they worked on for several years and canceled? It was unannounced, and a lot of games will get canceled that we don't even know about, that are just behind the scenes and were never announced. And then, of course, some are announced and then get cut down and canceled, and that's unfortunate. We just talked about PT, right? That was one. We saw Mega Man Legends 3 even get demoed at one point on the 3DS, and that got cut down, and that was a pretty big name with Mega Man. But it does make me wonder what Ubisoft could have been working on here, and two of the names that really spring to mind would have been Splinter Cell, although I still think they're working on Splinter Cell. That could have been a concept game that they said, this isn't going to work out for us. The other one, maybe Prince of Persia. That would have been a very interesting one to hear about, to see how that all worked out. Obviously, Luis here knows what it was, because they were working on it for years and years and years, although maybe it could have been under like a code name or something, and there was never a finalized title for it. But it is interesting to hear about some sort of game that was canceled by Ubisoft Montreal that could have been a Prince of Persia, or it could have been a new IP. It's hard to say, but a lot of times these games, these projects tend to get kind of put out there later on down the road. So who knows? Maybe Kotaku pops up with an article. Maybe Liam pops up with something about this. So we'll see if we ever get any word as to what this canceled project that had 200 people reassigned was. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about the PlayStation 5, specifically the PlayStation 5 controller. Now, we do know, of course, Let's Go Digital has done a bunch of different renderings, like artist renderings, and then just straight up renderings that would fit into a pattern to try to make sense and visualize for us what this thing could look like that's in a patent. And the big one that a lot of people are really wondering about right now is the PlayStation 5 controller, especially after seeing what we believe was a prototype or a dev kit PS5 controller next to the dev kit, the PS5 V-shaped dev kit that looks just absolutely crazy. But these are some of the pictures from the rendering. These are from Let's Go Digital. And you know what? Actually being able to see it like this does help, obviously, but it also makes me realize how much like the PS4 controller this thing really will look like. Now, of course, these are just renderings and them basically trying to figure out what it could look like, so it may end up looking a bit different, but Sony doesn't get too crazy with their controller designs. If you look at the PS2 to the PS3 to the PS4, it's probably not going to alter that much. There could be a few things missing or that could change from that patent that we saw. It's very possible that back buttons could be added, like macro buttons that we had talked about with those back button accessory that they're releasing next month. But for the most part, I'm looking at this rendering and that's probably what the PS5 controller is going to look like. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys if you were curious what the PS5 controller actually looks like in person or could look like. This is probably our best look until February, maybe? I'm going to say about February, where Sony does their own blowout event, or at least puts something out actually showing the PS5 to the world, much like what Microsoft has already done with the Xbox Series X. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Atsuko saying, "Can't wait to see how EA ruins the sequel now that they know it will sell." And that's for Jedi Fallen Order. You know what I've noticed now? The EA expectation is so bad at this point when it comes to microtransactions and monetization in-game and just all the extra tacked on stuff, that even if they have Respawn make a game that is completely void and clear of any of that with multiplayer, we still expect it for the sequel. Like, we just expect now that EA is going to step in and mess up the sequel completely. And I hope that's not the case, obviously, because I thought Fallen Order was very good. I think they may have pushed it out a bit. It got pushed out, I think, in kind of rough shape. It might have been able to benefit from a bit more time in development, but they have been fixing it through patches. I'm mostly talking about bugs and glitches and some oddness, we'll say, to the game when you're playing it. But overall, they did a good job, and I really hope EA stays away from that sequel. I know the expectation, as you're saying here, is that they'll probably mess it up, and you know what? They probably will. That's just what EA has made for themselves with their reputation. But here's hoping that they surprise us again with the sequel and just completely stay away. Just hands off with Respawn. Let them make another good Star Wars game. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Tencent attempting to explain why their Joy-Con controller's drifting, and it has to be because you're playing an imported game that we haven't approved for sale in China. Also, let me know what you think about that Ubisoft game that was canceled. What was it? Do you think it was something we would have been able to name with like a franchise that's existed for a while? Could it have been a new IP? I'm very curious what your thoughts are on that one. And then what about PT and kind of getting out of bounds from that hallway? Does it make you really a bit sad and disappointed that actual game Silent Hills that appeared to have really been on the move there with development never saw the light of day? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.